We were like oil and water. So I woke up one day and I just quit.
You would make that same mistake again
10 times out of 10. So I pushed through as long as I could, woke up one day, quit.
The guy who gave you the start, why did you leave? And what happened in that time between you leaving and coming back that allowed it to be this next launch point for your career?
So, a couple things of why I left. You got to think back then, healthcare reform passed in 2010. And it really didn't get implemented until 2014. So that was a turning point for the industry where nobody really knew what was going to happen. You know, orbits and kayak and the way you buy airplane tickets.
Yeah.
People thought that's how you were going to buy health insurance.
Wow.
So they thought we were going to become obsolete.
Wow.
Especially for small businesses, companies that have
I don't remember
5,
that,
10,
but
20,
that,
25 employees. So our agency at the time, and we're predominantly a small group agency, and if you compare us to all the other big name shops out there. But back then, our average client size had 11 people enrolled. My book of business had 10, 12, 15 person companies. And I'm thinking, this is all going to disappear overnight.
They would flip.
So
like
part
that,
of it,
right, yeah.
so part of it was a little bit of fear, right? Of losing my book of business. I was commissioned only, but also it was a turning point in the industry where you needed to invest in technology and invest in resources. And he wasn't willing to do it because he's very much an entrepreneur. He's very much so like, Joey, you know, there's a problem. Go find the solution.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to buy it.
Right.
Because that's just not the way he wouldn't want to do it.
Listen,
So
I think
I got frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was arrogant. I thought I knew better. So I left because there was a guy that was he recruited me for 3 years and he just happened to call me at the right moment and I left.
so. Depending on what lens you choose to look at that through, good for you. You know, because you had it in you to make a change and do something. Changes don't always work out. So I like that. But it does validate in every industry. You constantly need to be looking at your SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That was a clear threat to the business. That
Ended up not being a threat at all.
Yeah,
Ended up being the best
I was
thing that ever
wrong,
happened to him. I was so wrong. I was way off.
But you know what? I mean, for companies like Circuit City, you know, it wasn't that. You know,
Blockbuster?
Blockbuster,
Yeah.
right.
And so we always talk about the power of relationship, right? And like, wow, what a drastic change to a relationship that was so integral to your success. So you said you were arrogant and you thought you knew better. I'm assuming that he wasn't like, yeah, just go ahead. I'm assuming there was some.
He's a very unique personality. He always said, if you think you can find something better than you have, go talk to somebody. He would encourage it.
Yeah.
This guy, I will never forget the very first time this guy reached out to me. He spelt my email wrong. So it went to Ray.
Oh, wow.
And Ray forwarded it to me and says, you should call him and see what he wants.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I know what he wants. And
Right.
ultimately, 3
Mark,
years
that's
later,
exactly how I would react.
I went to go work for him. I lasted 10 months. It was, in a lot of ways, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Right?
I would say, where you working next? Man?
Yeah. Like,
it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And in a lot of ways, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I would go back and do it again.
right. So I'm so glad that you went there. I'm so glad that you went there because you were like, I was wrong. I was arrogant. But you would make that same mistake again
10 times out of 10.
Why? What'd you get from it?
I learned more in that 10 months of being gone. I learned how strong relationship Ray and I had. Those 10 months being gone working for this other agency, I grew as a salesperson more in those 10 months than I had in the previous 4.5 years.
Why? Why?
I had a lot of mental trash. Like I thought I couldn't do X. I thought I couldn't do Y.
We
And
just talked about it this morning.
He
Whatever
pushed
story
me-
you're telling yourself.
He pushed buttons that I didn't know I had
Mm.
and motivated me to do things. And I proved myself wrong. And in doing so, I really just didn't care for the guy at all. We were like oil and water.
Mm.
So I woke up one day and I just quit. I had no plan of doing anything.
Wow.
Just quit. Called him, was like, I'm done.
Okay.
And then I called Adrian and I was like, hey, I just quit my job.
Okay.
Which,
Sorry.
when you leave a job without another job, you got to really want to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, does that sound familiar?
Yeah,
Is that it?
yeah.
So
no.
I
you
had
gotta be
something-
done. You
You
gotta
gotta
know
be
that you're
really
done.
done.
we were talking about Affleck earlier. I went and worked for Colonial for
Okay, yeah.
for the
I know,
fourth quarter.
yeah.
I had a friend that ran a district. I helped her for the fourth quarter. It was busy. It was fun. It was different. Could not do that at all. And somewhere around 1st of January, I called Ray and I was like, hey, like, let's have a serious conversation about coming back. I had talked to him in November already and kind of planted the seed.
Was that Humble Pie? Was that,
No, so actually, rewind a little bit. I quit September 27th of 2015 because I had a 2-year non-compete. I'll never forget that. So I called Adrian first, and then my next phone call was to Ray. And I said, hey, you were right. You know, for whatever it's worth, I quit.
It's like that Billy. I picture that Billy Madison. You were right. I was wrong. You're smart.
So I called him 6 weeks after 6 weeks after I left. So middle of January, I called him and I was like, hey man, I think I made a mistake. He's like, oh, you made a mistake. For sure.
Yeah.
But you gave that guy your word, so you got to stay there for a year at least. 'Cause you're not coming back here. You're not welcome.
Wow.
And I was like, all right. Talk about a humbling experience.
Yeah.
So I pushed through as long as I could, woke up one day, quit. Ray was my first phone call, met with him in November. And then in January, called him again, ended up having lunch with he and his wife, having lunch at a restaurant in Ocala, because that's where he lived. And finally decided, like, yeah, we're going to come. And he's like, all right, so how much? I know you're not going to give me my book of business back. I don't want it, but I can't work for free.
Right.
So what's that going to look like? He's like, oh, no. He's like, I'm not going to pay you. He's like, you can write out a business plan and go get a loan from the bank.